It was one of those quiet Tuesday evenings when the world seemed to slow down, wrapped in that soft, golden light right before sunset. The sun was slipping gently behind the old oak trees that guarded our backyard, their long shadows stretching lazily across the lawn. The air inside our home was warm and comforting, carrying the cozy scent of freshly baked bread mixed with a faint sweetness of cinnamon, the kind of smell that always reminded me that home was more than just walls and windows. Baking was my therapy, my way of untangling thoughts when life felt a little too heavy. That evening was no different. My name is Emily Carter, and that night, though it began like any other, would end up changing how I understood motherhood, love, and the quiet struggles our children sometimes hide behind their smiles. I never imagined that a simple conversation with my son, Michael, would reshape the way I saw myself as a mother. Michael was 17, tall, lanky, still growing into himself. He had his father's deep blue eyes, steady and searching, and my stubborn jawline that hinted at the fiery spirit I often saw in him. Lately, though, there had been something different about him. His laughter came less often. The light in his eyes dimmed just slightly, the way a candle flickers when it's fighting a draft. Parents always notice these small things, the unspoken silences, the forced smiles, the longer pauses between conversations. Children think they can hide what they feel, but a mother always knows. That evening, as I stood by the counter wiping away the last bit of flour, I heard the familiar sound of the back door opening. Michael walked in, his backpack slung lazily over one shoulder, his posture heavy, far too heavy for someone his age. There was something in the way he leaned against the doorway, quiet and distant, that made my heart sink just a little. I glanced up and smiled, trying to keep my tone light, as if pretending everything was fine might make it so. "Hey, sweetheart," I said, nodding toward the warm loaf of bread cooling on the counter. "Hungry?" He shook his head slowly. "Not really." That answer, so small, so simple, told me everything I needed to know. Michael was a teenager, and if there's one thing teenage boys are rarely not, it's hungry. My hands paused, towel still in my grasp. Something inside me stirred, a soft alarm only a mother can hear. That quiet instinct that whispers, "Something's wrong." I turned to face him fully, drying my hands as I spoke. "All right," I said gently. "Then tell me what's going on. I can see it all over your face." For a moment he didn't move. He just stood there, eyes lowered, his fingers nervously tugging at the strap of his backpack. I could almost see the storm behind his silence, that battle between wanting to speak and fearing what might happen if he did. Then slowly he crossed the room and sat down at the kitchen table, shoulders slumped forward as though carrying an invisible weight. "Mom," he began, his voice quiet but steady. "Can I be honest with you about something? Without you judging me." Those words pierced me. I felt them like a small ache in my chest. Every parent wants their child to feel safe, to know that honesty won't be met with anger or disappointment. I pulled out the chair across from him and sat down, leaning in just a bit. "Of course, Michael," I said softly. "You can always be honest with me. No judgment, just love." He nodded once, eyes still downcast. Then he exhaled, a deep, trembling breath that seemed to carry weeks, maybe months of bottled-up emotion. It was the kind of breath you take before diving into cold water, uncertain of how deep it goes. "I've been feeling like I'm not good enough," he said finally, his words stumbling at first, then rushing out faster. Like no matter what I do, I'm going to fail. School, sports, even just being me. His voice cracked on that last sentence, and my heart ached in a way only a mother's heart can. 17. Standing on the fragile edge between childhood and adulthood, and already feeling the crushing weight of expectation. I reached across the table and placed my hand gently over his. "Oh, Michael," I whispered, my voice trembling slightly. "You are more than enough. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone. Not to your teachers, not to your friends, not even to us. You're my son and I'm proud of you. Not for what you do, but for who you are." He looked up then, meeting my gaze, and I saw it, that glimmer of tears in his blue eyes. That silent question. "Do you really mean that?" And I did. More than anything, that conversation opened a floodgate. For the next hour, Michael talked, really talked. The words tumbled out in waves. He spoke about the pressure of grades, the fear of not meeting his father's expectations, the anxiety that sometimes kept him awake at night, his heart pounding with thoughts he couldn't quiet. I listened, not with the intent to fix or correct, but to truly understand. I didn't interrupt. I didn't offer quick solutions. I just listened, letting him unburden himself one truth at a time. When he finally ran out of words, I shared pieces of my own story, the insecurities I carried as a teenager, the nights I cried quietly, the times I felt lost and unworthy. I told him how, over time, I learned that strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up even when the world feels heavy. Outside, night had fallen completely. The kitchen was wrapped in a warm amber glow from the hanging light above the table. The house was quiet except for the faint ticking of the clock and the comforting hum of the refrigerator. Somehow, that little kitchen, the same one where I'd kneaded dough and packed lunches, felt sacred that night, as if it were holding us both in a cocoon of safety and understanding. When Michael finally leaned back in his chair, there was something different about him. He looked lighter, softer, as though a bit of that invisible weight had finally lifted. "Thanks, Mom," he said quietly. "I didn't think you'd understand, but you do." I smiled, brushing a loose strand of hair from my face. "Michael," I said, my voice gentle but firm, "being your mother is the most important thing I will ever do. And if there's one thing I've learned in all these years, it's that life isn't about never falling. It's about finding the courage to stand back up, every single time." That conversation didn't magically fix everything. It didn't erase his worries or make the world easier, but it planted a seed, a quiet reassurance that he wasn't alone. Over the next few weeks, I noticed subtle changes. He still struggled, of course. He still had bad days. But now he talked more. He let me in. Sometimes late at night, I'd find him wandering into the kitchen again, sitting down at that same table, and we'd talk about his dreams, his fears, his hopes for the future. And every time, before he went to bed, I made sure to remind him of the truth I hoped he'd never forget. He was loved. He was enough, and he didn't have to face the world on his own. Years later, I still remember that evening as vividly as if it happened yesterday. There was no dramatic confrontation, no shouting, no tears of anger. Just a mother and her son, sitting in the soft light of their kitchen, sharing words that quietly changed them both, because sometimes the moments that transform us most aren't the ones filled with chaos or noise. They're the gentle ones, the quiet ones, where love does its work silently, patiently and completely.